Imagine a world where a single lie could steal your freedom. In 1960s Alabama, Isaiah Thompson, a black carpenter, lived this nightmare. A powerful white man's accusation sent him to prison for a crime he didn't commit, his life torn apart by a system built to silence black voices. This is a story of betrayal, resilience, and a fight for justice that echoes today. We are about to uncover a truth that demands to be heard. If this moves you, hit that like button and subscribe to Black Voices Megaphone to amplify these untold stories. Let's dive into Isaiah's journey, a tale of survival that will grip your heart. In the sweltering summer of 1962, Isaiah Thompson, a 28-year-old carpenter, lived in Willow Creek, Alabama, a town carved by the sharp edge of segregation. His hands, rough from years of shaping pine and oak, crafted tables that stood as quiet acts of defiance in black homes. Isaiah's life was tethered to his workshop, a small shed where the scent of sawdust mingled with the weight of a world that judged him by his skin. Willow Creek's streets were divided by an invisible line, white on one side, black on the other. Every step Isaiah took was a careful navigation of unspoken rules. The air was thick with tension, and survival demanded silence. Isaiah woke before dawn, the horizon still bruised with night. His mother's house, modest but warm, stood at the edge of the Black Quarter. In his workshop, he sanded wood with a rhythm that steadied his mind. Each table he built was a labor of love, its intricate designs a testament to a skill honed since boyhood. For the black families of Willow Creek, his furniture was more than utility, it was pride, a claim to dignity in a place that offered none. But pride was a spark that could ignite trouble in a town ruled by men like Harlan Hargrove. Hargrove owned the town's hardware store, a hub of white power where black customers were tolerated but never welcomed. His eyes carried a cold disdain, his silence louder than words. Isaiah knew the store well, having visited it countless times for nails or tools. Each trip was a test of endurance, a reminder of his place in Willow Creek's hierarchy. Hargrove's influence stretched beyond his counter, his word carrying the weight of law in a town where justice was a privilege, not a right. Isaiah's quiet success as a carpenter grated on men like Hargrove, who saw black ambition as an affront. On a humid July morning, Isaiah walked to Hargrove's store. The heat pressed against his skin, the sun a relentless witness to his journey. White townsfolk eyed him as he passed, their glances sharp with suspicion. Inside the store, the air was stale, shelves lined with tools Isaiah could only afford in small measures. He selected a small bag of nails, his movements deliberate. He approached the counter. Hargrove's gaze was a blade, cutting through the silence. Isaiah placed his coins down, took his purchase, and left, the sting of being unwelcome a familiar ache. That evening, as Isaiah polished a table in his shed, the world shifted. The sheriff's truck roared up, its tires kicking dust into the twilight. 2 deputies stormed in, their boots heavy on the dirt floor. They accused Isaiah of stealing a hammer from Hargrove's store. The charge hit like a blow. Isaiah had taken nothing but nails, his receipt tucked in his pocket. But truth was a fragile thing in Willow Creek. Hargrove's accusation, backed by his status, was enough. The deputies handcuffed Isaiah, dragging him past his mother's trembling figure. Neighbors watched, their eyes heavy with fear. The arrest sent shockwaves through the black community. Whispers spread of Hargrove's grudge, fueled by envy of Isaiah's craft and resentment of his quiet dignity. In the Black Quarter, families gathered in hushed tones, their anger tempered by the reality of their powerlessness. Isaiah was taken to the county jail, a squat building of gray stone. His cell was damp, the walls etched with the despair of those who'd come before. He lay on a thin cot, replaying the day, the absurdity of the charge gnawing at him. The system wasn't built to hear his truth. Isaiah's trial came swiftly, a formality dressed in the guise of justice. The courtroom was a sea of white faces, their murmurs a low hum of anticipation. The judge, a man with deep ties to Hargrove's circle, presided with an air of indifference. No evidence was presented beyond Hargrove's claim, no hammer, no witnesses, only a white man's word against a black man's life. The all-white jury deliberated for less than an hour. Their verdict a foregone conclusion. Guilty, 7 years in prison for a theft that existed only in Hargrove's mind. As Isaiah was led away, his mother, Esther, stood outside, her sobs a quiet rebellion against the silence. The gavel's echo lingered in Isaiah's mind, a sound that sealed his fate. The black community felt the weight of his conviction, a reminder of their shared vulnerability. In homes across Willow Creek, families spoke of Isaiah in hushed reverence, his story a wound that refused to heal. The system had spoken, and its voice was not one of fairness but of control. Prison was a descent into a different kind of hell. Isaiah was sent to a labor camp in the Alabama countryside, where fields stretched under a sun that offered no mercy. The days were long, the work brutal, picking cotton, hauling stones, each task designed to break the body and spirit. Isaiah's hands, once used for creation, now bled from labor that enriched others. He saw other black men, their stories echoing his own, petty charges, rushed trials, lives discarded by a system that saw them as threats. Yet Isaiah found ways to endure. At night, in the dim flicker of his cell, he carved small wooden figures, trees, faces of his mother and sister. Each stroke of his makeshift knife was a reclaiming of his humanity. The figures were small, easily hidden, but they carried a weight the guards could not measure. Other inmates saw them as talismans, passing them hand to hand in secret. Isaiah's carvings became a quiet language, a testament to a spirit that refused to be crushed. Outside the prison's walls, the world was stirring. The civil rights movement was rising, its leaders challenging the foundations of segregation. In 1963, the March on Washington sent ripples across the nation. Its call for equality, a distant hope for men like Isaiah. In Willow Creek, black residents began to organize, their meetings held in church basements. They met to avoid the sheriff's gaze. Isaiah's case became a rallying cry, his name whispered in prayers and protests. Esther, his mother, emerged as a voice of resilience, her grief transformed into resolve. Esther's strength was a beacon. She stood before small crowds, her voice steady as she recounted her son's story. She spoke of the nails, the receipt, the lie that had stolen Isaiah's freedom. Her words drew others, mothers, fathers, young activists who saw Isaiah's fate as their own. The Black Quarter buzzed with quiet defiance, though fear of retaliation kept their actions cautious. White Willow Creek watched, its power structure rattled by the stirrings of change. Hargrove's store, once untouchable, became a symbol of the town's rot. In 1965, a young lawyer named Clara Evans arrived in Alabama. Clara was part of a new wave of activists, her law degree a weapon against injustice. She heard of Isaiah through a network of organizers, his case one of many buried in the system's archives. Clara requested his file, her eyes scanning pages that revealed a travesty. No evidence, no witnesses, only Hargrove's word. She visited Isaiah in the labor camp, her presence a jolt of hope. In the visiting room, she promised to fight for him, her conviction a spark in the darkness. Clara's investigation was a battle against time and power. She interviewed neighbors, who spoke in whispers of Hargrove's vendetta. She tracked down Isaiah's receipt, a crumpled slip of paper that contradicted the theft. Clara learned of Hargrove's history, other black customers accused, their lives disrupted by his lies. Her findings painted a picture of a man whose influence had warped Willow Creek's justice. Clara's work was meticulous, her belief in Isaiah's innocence a fire that refused to dim. The fight for Isaiah drew others. Civil rights groups sent organizers to Willow Creek, their presence a challenge to the town's old guard. Rallies formed outside the courthouse, signs bearing Isaiah's name swaying in the humid air. The black community found courage in numbers, their voices rising in songs of freedom. White residents, some uneasy, others enraged, pushed back. Hargrove's allies leaned on the sheriff, who patrolled the Black Quarter. The sheriff's patrols grew heavier, yet the movement grew, its roots too deep to uproot. Clara's work stretched into 1966. Each step forward met with resistance. She faced threats, anonymous letters, late-night calls, but refused to waver. In the Black community, Esther and others kept Isaiah's story alive, their gatherings a blend of grief and hope. They spoke of other men, other cases, their losses a tapestry of injustice. Isaiah's carvings, smuggled out by released inmates, became symbols at rallies, their delicate forms a stark contrast to the system's brutality. By 1967, Clara uncovered a key piece of evidence, Hargrove's store ledger, a dusty book that showed no missing hammer on the day of the alleged theft. The ledger was a crack in Hargrove's story, its pages a silent witness to his lie. Clara paired this with testimonies from Black customers who'd faced similar accusations. Her case was airtight, but Willow Creek's courts were slow to bend. She petitioned for a new hearing, her request backed by growing public pressure from activists across Alabama. The broader context of the era fueled the fight. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 had shifted the ground, giving Black communities a voice, however suppressed. In Montgomery and Selma, marches and protests drew the nation's eyes. Isaiah's case, though smaller, carried the same weight, a single life caught in the machinery of oppression. Clara's work aligned with these larger battles, her legal briefs echoing the demands of a movement that refused to wait. Willow Creek, once a backwater, became a stage for a reckoning. In 1968, the courts relented. A new hearing was scheduled, the first in years to question Hargrove's word. The courtroom was different this time. Its seats filled with activists, their presence a silent demand for truth. Clara presented her case with precision. The ledger and testimonies dismantling Hargrove's lie. The store owner called to testify, faltered under questioning, his contradictions glaring. The judge, a younger man shaped by the era's upheavals, listened with an openness the old guard lacked. On a crisp morning in March 1969, the judge overturned Isaiah's conviction. The courtroom erupted, cheers drowning out the gavel. Isaiah, now 35, walked free, his steps unsteady as he emerged into sunlight. Esther waited outside, her arms open, her tears a mix of joy and pain. The crowd chanted his name, their voices a chorus of triumph. But Isaiah's eyes were distant, fixed on the years stolen from him, 5 years of labor, of carvings, of a life paused by a lie. Freedom was a complex gift. Isaiah returned to Willow Creek, but the town was a shadow of itself. His workshop had been dismantled, his tools sold to pay debts his family incurred during his imprisonment. The Black community embraced him, their homes filled with stories of his resilience. Yet their welcome couldn't erase the loss. Isaiah's hands, still skilled, began again with a single plank of wood. He built a table, its surface smooth but heavy with the weight of survival. Isaiah's release was a victory, but not an end. Willow Creek's power structure bent but did not break. Hargrove's store lost customers, his influence waning, but he faced no punishment. The sheriff remained, his patrols a reminder of the town's limits. Isaiah's neighbors, emboldened by his freedom, pushed for more better schools, fair wages. They sought a voice in their future. Their fight was slow, each step met with resistance, but Isaiah's story gave it shape, a spark that refused to fade. Isaiah's carvings became a legacy. Activists carried them to rallies, their delicate forms displayed alongside signs and banners. Each bird, each tree, was a piece of Isaiah's soul, a reminder of what he'd endured. Civil rights groups published his story. Their pamphlets spread his name beyond Alabama. Isaiah never sought fame, his hands more at home with wood than with crowds. Yet his life spoke louder than any speech, its truth a call to action for a nation grappling with its sins. The years that followed were a slow rebuilding. Isaiah crafted tables again, each one a monument to his endurance. His mother, Esther, remained a pillar. Her voice now joined by others in Willow Creek's Black community, Clara Evans continued her work, taking on new cases, her briefcase filled with files that echoed Isaiah's. The town changed in increments. Black children entered integrated schools, Black voters cast ballots, but the scars of the past lingered, their edges raw. Isaiah's story rippled beyond Willow Creek. In Birmingham, Atlanta, and beyond, organizers spoke of him, their words tying his case to the broader fight. His tables, sturdy and intricate, stood in homes and churches, their surfaces worn by hands that knew their worth. Each piece was a silent megaphone, amplifying a truth the system had tried to bury. Isaiah's life, though marked by loss, became a symbol of what it meant to survive, to create, to resist. The civil rights movement evolved, its victories hard-won but incomplete. The assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr. and others left wounds that bled into the 1970s, yet Isaiah's story endured, its details passed down in families, its lessons etched into the movement's heart. His carvings, now prized by collectors, appeared in exhibits, their quiet beauty a contrast to the violence they'd outlasted. Isaiah lived into his late 70s, his hands never still, his spirit unbroken. Willow Creek faded from maps, its name lost to time, but Isaiah's tables remained. They stood in living rooms, their grain telling a story of injustice and resilience. His case, though one of thousands, was a thread in the tapestry of Black struggle. The system that sentenced him was not unique to Alabama. It was a national machine, its gears grinding lives into dust. Isaiah's freedom was a crack in that machine, a reminder that truth, however delayed, could break through. The legacy of Isaiah's story is not in its end, but in its echo. Black voices like his carry the weight of centuries' pain, perseverance, and a demand for justice. His life was a megaphone for those who refused to stay silent. A call to remember the names, the faces, the lives caught in the system's grip. Isaiah's tables, still standing, are more than wood, they are monuments to a truth that cannot be ignored, a truth that demands to be heard. For every Isaiah, there are countless others. Their stories buried in court records, their names forgotten by a world that moved on. The fight for justice is not a single victory but a long road, its path marked by the resilience of those who walk it. Isaiah's carvings, his tables, his life, they are Black voices amplified. Their sound a challenge to a system that still falters. This is the power of his story. It lives, it speaks, it endures.